Welcome, everybody, to the very first ever Impactus podcast. My name is Kirk Giles. I am joined by Mauricio Rosa and Rick Verkirk. And today we are going to talk about Impactus. We exist to help equip men like you for a life of purpose and godly impact. And we want to introduce this whole name and idea of Impactus to you today. But before we do that, Mauricio, Rick, good to see you guys as always.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
Yep, it's great.
Nobody's wearing a face mask, so that's good.
Episode number one.
Episode number one.
Number one.
That's right. You guys can
That's exciting.
It is. It's very exciting. One day you can like sell your autograph and say that you were on episode one of the Impactus podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, that'll be a big seller.
Well, all I can say is this: I'm probably gonna be still around, and all you guys are gonna be gone. So died, and I'll be because I'm the youngest here. So
you are such a positive dude. We're all gonna be dead.
What are you saying, Mauricio?
Thanks, Mauricio. Man alive. On that positive note, this brings to an end the first ever Impactus podcast.
You know, before we go, I hope, Mauricio, you're not too prophetic about what you just said. But we'll see.
I don't have the gift of prophecy, so don't worry about it.
We're about to find out, aren't we?
I guess.
Oh, man.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
oh, wow.
Marissa, you need to save this podcast.
Well, this is the very first one. So why don't you talk a little bit to us about, what is up with the name Impactus?
Yeah, it's funny because different people have seen the name and they're like, Kirk, I can see this name. It means impact us, or it means impact USA, like we're going on a missions trip to rescue America or something like that.
Don't elaborate too much on that.
That's right. No, it's like, so Impactus is a Latin name, and it really carries the idea of pressing closely into something. And Jesus once used a phrase where in John 15, he was teaching his disciples about abiding in him. And he actually said, apart from me, you can do nothing. And there's just kind of this great picture of the importance of us pressing in our lives into walking with Jesus and allowing his grace, his power to press into our lives. And I think that the whole idea of Impactus is just this sense of we want to equip men that, like, we all want our lives to count. We all want to make a difference. We all want to have an impact with our lives, with our families, with our neighbors, in our communities, in our workplaces, wherever we are. We want to know we've made a difference as men. But in order to do that, in the mind of Jesus, we actually have to press into him. We have to abide in him. So Impactus is all about how do we press into what matters most so that we can be equipped to be able to have a life of purpose and godly impact in the world. And so, yeah, we just borrowed an old Latin word just for the sake of something fun to do, and decided to introduce this name Impactus. There's a long journey about how we got here and how we ended up choosing the name Impactus. But I got to tell you, I am so excited to be in this spot today after the journey we've been on, and to be able to bring this idea of Impactus to men.
I love the name Impactus, Kirk, because like in history, you see that every time people want to preserve something that is all-time truth, that is a timeless truth, they use Latin word, Latin language, right? So, and for me, this carries, this privilege and opportunity at the same time that we have to kind of use Impactus as this Latin word that can potentially last forever, with this deep-rooted meaning of it's also forever, of continue to pressing into Jesus, at least until he returns or call all of us home, as we alluded at the beginning. So,
So what you're telling me is I should press in till I'm dead, and apparently I'm going to die soon. So thanks, Mauricio.
Becoming more and more prophetic, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. I don't know why I'm smiling. Oh, boy.
Rick, you and I have been really involved with this kind of from the beginning. I mean, Mauricio's been involved with it too, but like this goes back years for you and I, Rick, to get to this point today. Like, what are some of the things that you remember about this journey we've been on to get here?
The journey. Well, the journey started, it's got to be almost 6 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, at one of our leadership meetings, where I know I said to all of the guys on the leadership team at that time, we need to change our name. And of course, that did not go over well. Matter of fact, it didn't go over well for about a year or two. Because there was a tremendous loyalty and a even greater appreciation for the name Promise Keepers. And really, even to this day, the name is revered, and there's really nothing wrong with the name Promise Keepers. But as our discussions went over time, there were circumstances, there were events, there were things happening that kept drawing us back to a conversation about where, quite frankly, it wasn't the only thing, but just having the name Promise Keepers was potentially limiting the ministry. And that didn't sit well with us as a leadership team, that because of our unwillingness to examine even just the name, we might be holding back God. And certainly, you know, along the way, it became more and more evident that we needed to think through that if this is the Lord's ministry, where does he want to go with this? And I can assure everybody that from the beginning of this thing was bathed in prayer by the leadership team, because it was our natural sinful behavior to not want to do anything. There was a lot of personal giving up, if I could call it that, to go down this road. I mean, we didn't have the Impactus name until well to the end. This was about thinking about where God wanted us to go with his ministry. And it was evident to us because of some of the limitations, like only Canada, that we were to look at international possibilities without losing sight of Canada and what that would be. And then just the whole marketplace continues to change. It continues to evolve. It continues to look different and operate different. What did we need to do? At the beginning, this was a few people talking, and the contributions of some people, they're not even on staff anymore. They were staff members at one point, and
They didn't die though. They didn't die though. They're okay.
Didn't die.
Yet.
But they are gone.
That's right.
And and then eventually it expanded a bit more into a few other people as it became apparent that we really needed to go down this direction, which meant going through the whole natural behavior thing of resistance with people on the board of directors. And God bless them that they stood up and challenged us to examine, re-examine. But this is where we're at today, and I could summarize the entire journey to say it's been amazing. It's been amazing, and I can't think of any particular time along the journey where, you know, there was an abrupt or a very visible or very evident God saying, stop, don't do this. I always felt like that the door was open and the path was in front of us, and we just needed to be very stewardly and cautious about moving forward, but continue to move forward. And that's where we're at today.
Yeah, I want to add, totally, I want to add one little piece to that. You know, what most people wouldn't know is that throughout the process, I spent time praying and asking God to actually stop us. Because there were plenty of times where I'm like, I do not want to do this. Like, this is just going to be such a hassle and a headache and such a difficult challenge. I have no desire to go down this path. And I would pray, like, God, would you please stop us? Like, especially if this is a big mistake, please stop us. And and God just did completely the opposite. He actually just kind of kept affirming this is what he wanted. He kept opening doors. People would say and do things that they would have no idea that we were going down a certain direction. And people would say and do things as if they had full knowledge of what we were doing. And, I'm sitting there going, like, only God can do that and put those thoughts in people's minds to say things to us the way that they did along the way. And so even with our board of directors, it took us like 3 years of processing and praying and planning and everything else. And the Impactus name originally came from one of our staff members in a brainstorming meeting of different name ideas. And, personally, like, I actually didn't like it and I dismissed it. I pretended like it was never even said, and kept praying and kept thinking and everything else. And one day, after praying about it, I literally woke up and just had a clear sense that God was saying it's Impactus. And we talked as a leadership team. We prayed some more and talked with our board and prayed some more. And there were just continuous things along the way that we kind of held it with an open hand and said, God, if this is what you want, keep leading us. And if you don't want it, just shut it down now. And it's just been amazing. I agree with Rick. It's been amazing to see how we've gotten to where we are today.
Really, one thing that I really appreciate through this process, and just even listening to you guys here, and in a world where everything is driven by marketing strategies, how to gain an edge, and all of that. I'm not dismissing the importance of those practical things and the pragmatics and all that, but when I think about this whole process, just listening to you guys and being kind of somewhat involved, is the deep desire and conviction to how can we make changes so that it will further the ministry and not just a marketing strategy, right? I think this is so important, and this is so embedded and rooted in the ministry of who we are, that we take this so seriously, the calling that God has given us as a ministry, that we say, hey, we are willing to do anything and everything. Even as Rick was saying before, are we really willing to make this kind of a change so that we can actually have a greater impact? And I think answering those kind of questions and submitting to God and to his guidance and direction, I think this is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Rick.
And that's what excites me about this next season, this next chapter, this next life of what we now know of as, in the past, being Promise Keepers Canada, right? You see, what excites me about it is because ultimately what we're trying to do is share the gospel of Jesus. I mean, there's other things that are attached to it, help men become disciples of Jesus. That's our vision statement. But this is really about the gospel of Jesus and nothing else. It's not about conferences.
Yes.
It's not about workshops. And you're, I'm the guy that just absolutely loves doing conferences, right? But hanging on to stuff like that is traditionalism. And if you look back over history, right, even in biblical times, the teachings of the gospel, where did they happen? They happened in the synagogue. They happened in town squares, like in Greece. Paul talks about, the gathering, and he would talk. Then it was house church in the book of Acts, and to which there still is some today. I mean,
literally.
You see, it's never really been the same throughout history. It continues to change how we spread the gospel of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so this ministry for 25 years began with spreading the gospel through live events, basically conferences. And then it grew. It grew into workshops. It grew into seminars. It grew into magazines, and it grew into devotionals. It just grew and grew and grew, right? And it's become clear in the journey along the way. And this is what excites me about Impactus, really excites me, is that where we believe God is leading this ministry now will increase the effectiveness of his ministry because it'll be broader. And I know we're going to talk about that in a few minutes about what that actually looks like. But this is a whole new synagogue, or
Mm.
this is a whole new town square that we're about to enter and and to work through. And we're not losing sight of what we're doing. We're still doing all the things we do today. That's not disappearing. We're adding, and that's what this whole move to Impactus does. And for me, it's like it's very exciting because it's like it's the next chapter in reading a book, and what's that going to look like? I mean, I don't know if either of you guys want to, jump in on that. Just does this really excite you? What is it that excites you about this that we can tell anyone who's listening to this?
Go ahead, Mal.
No, I cannot agree, enough. I think what you're saying, Rick, really is the heart of this ministry. And when I think about what you're saying, it just comes to my mind the words of Paul when he says, like, I became Jew to the Jews, I became Greek to the Greek, so that I could win one more. Right? I think this idea of adjusting and adapting for a greater good, for a greater purpose. I think this is something that often ministries, even churches in general, sometimes you can just get so boxed into something that you can't let go. And I think the calling is no, let go and let become what we need. And that doesn't mean that you need to lose what you are, and that doesn't necessarily kind of eliminates your history or what you have accomplished, but actually that girders, the whole past just girders who you are for launching into new opportunities. And I think this is what excites me right now, is just to think about, like, even in the season of pandemics, when all this began, we were like, oh, what's going to be? And then you hear now that more people are accessing the gospel, and more people in the world, like sermons and all this have been reached a greater reach in the world because of online ministry. And you feel about, man, God is doing something here that is so far greater than nobody ever thought about. And so this excites me, what lies ahead of us with this ministry.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be able to be in this spot because I look at different generations of men. I think back to when I started in Promise Keepers 24 years ago, and I think about guys who were 20 and 30 years older than me at the time, who were helping to launch Promise Keepers, and the influence that ministry had in my life as a guy in his 20s who was figuring out marriage and family and career and all of those kinds of things, and how the commitment and sacrifice of those men to invest in my life made such a huge difference for me. And I think that we are in a spot right now where, as a ministry, we're looking at this and we're saying, we don't want any man to be missed out in the opportunity to hear the gospel and to be able to know what it looks like to follow Jesus. And so we want men of every generation to be the men that God is calling and created them to be, because that's where you find life. That's where you're going to find your greatest impact. That's where you are going to find your true sense of significance as a man, is in following Jesus. And so I am so excited by this. And for those of you who are listening, we're going to talk practically about what this actually means for you in a minute. But I just want to say to you that, like, our heart is that we're all in this together. Men of every generation need to be in this together, and uh, and we need to be able to be sharpening each other and helping each other to continue to move forward, to be the men that God has called us to be. One of the ways we're going to do that, one of the big shifts for us as an organization, is we're really shifting into a lot of more online ministry content, not exclusively online ministry, but we are doing a lot more online because we know there is a whole generation of men that their primary way of learning and growing in their life is by accessing things online. And Marissa, you're really heavily involved. We're launching a brand new website this week as this podcast is going out. The new website is being launched, impactus.org. If you go to promisekeepers.ca, it'll automatically flip you over to impactus.org. And Marissa, just maybe tell the men how this website's going to help to equip them for a life of purpose and godly impact? What are some of the online things we're doing?
Oh yeah, no, it is true, and I think one thing I can say is this, like even our mission and vision. Well, when we say that equipping man for a life of purpose and godly impact, in the world of information age, what we want to do with our website is to provide as much content as possible to continuously equip guys. So guys, every day they will have access to new content on our website, whether it's going to be a podcast or a This Is Me TV, the devotionals, articles on diverse variety of topics. We're going to talk about life issues. We're going to talk within that. We're going to talk about, there is no taboos. Like we're going to talk about like grief and loss, addiction, pornography. You're going to talk about families. You're going to talk about marriage. You're going to talk all those topics that, as you said, like every man needs to know and needs to learn somehow and somewhere. And in this world where information is so vital, and when I say that is, it's so easy to get the wrong information. So what we want to do is to put the right information as available as it can be, so that man can actually be sound fed and nurtured to continue to press into Jesus and the calling to follow him and become a godly person. So that's essentially what we are doing with our website. This is one way we are doing it.
One of the amazing things about the new website is the opportunity for guys just to go in and search on kind of any topic. And you'll be able to get, at any time, pull up different articles and teaching and videos and podcasts on those topics that will help to equip you in those areas of your life. We're going to have small group resources on there for if you're a men's ministry leader in your church, just so many different tools. Now, there's also going to be some other things that we do, not just on the website, but some other ways that guys can grow through some of the online ministry work we're doing too. So talk a little bit about some of those other things that we're doing this fall.
Yeah, we are doing some online workshops, and by that we have a different ways of doing. We already start kind of implementing some of those ideas, doing some live online workshops, doing some Facebook closed groups workshops where guys can access good content at their own time, at their own pace, and have a discussion and collaboration with each other in a closed group. So those are some of the things that we are doing and planning on doing for guys throughout the world to get access. Even like yesterday, I got a message from a guy in Chile, and the guy's like, "Hey, we want to start a men's ministry. How can you help us?" And I said, "Just hang in there for a couple more weeks. Like we're gonna help you.
Yeah, and that's exciting. That's a great picture of one of the things that's on our heart for seeing the expansion of the impact of this ministry is the opportunity to respond. For years, we've had people from other countries asking us for help to do men's ministry in their country. And we just haven't been able to do that because of some just different issues in the organization. And now we're in a place where we'll be able to help guys all around the world to be able to minister to the men in their countries and provide the resources just to support them and stand with them. It just so much opportunity that exists for the ministry. So we want to encourage you as men who are listening, bookmark that website, impactus.org, bookmark it in your browser, go to it every day and take 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, whatever it is, and just check out the new content that Mauricio was talking about to help equip you for a life of purpose and godly impact. Now,
Hey, just one more thing, Kurt.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I just want to also emphasize that as much as we are talking about how this is reaching direct to man, we haven't forgot, that we also exist to serve the churches and leadership, men's ministry leadership in churches. So we are actually going to also provide on our website, online training for how to set up and how to create, how to adjust or revamp your men's ministry in your church. Right. So I just want to remind that, yes, as much as we are going a lot to direct to you as you access the website at your own time and pace and all that, we haven't forgot the mandate to equip and train leaders. And if there is a time in season in the world that we need leaders, is now. And then we are committed to continue to train leaders.
Yeah, that's a good word. Thanks, Mauricio. Um, Rick, one of the things, you and I have been around, we know a lot of men from over the years that we've served in this ministry, a lot of guys across the country. And there's a lot of guys who've been around the ministry for a long time. They love this ministry. And maybe they're a little skeptical about a change like this. Maybe they're a little concerned about this kind of a change and what it means for them or for the organization. What would you say to a guy who's struggling with that?
Well, we've already experienced that with some of the, I'll say, older men who are, connected to PK, through the board of directors and other connections, and are witness to just some of their resistance to this. I'll call it that. And I get it. You've been a fan for a long, long time. You've been a supporter. And now you've got this thrust upon you, whereas for like you and I, Kirk, it's been years and years to get used to it and the idea. I guess it's too simple to say, but to start out, say, look, in the end, it's just about a name. It's changing a name and changing the way we present ourselves. This ministry started out as a conference ministry. That's what it was. It was conferences. We now are a ministry that is using multiple resources and now adding even more resources in order to reach out to men, not only in Canada, but around the world, and the people that they're associated with, their families, their friends, in order to bring them the gospel of Jesus. So, yeah, we're still going to have conferences. I'm hoping you're still going to wear your Promise Keeper shirt so I see you when I'm there, if I'm not gone, Mauricio. And and hopefully you'll head down to the Resource Center and buy an Impactus shirt. I don't know, but I would just say to all the older guys, like, I'm an older guy, so what do I look at? I go, you know what? This has been good, but this is right, because I'm worried about my son. I'm worried about my grandsons. And they don't see things the same way as me. And I'm happy that this ministry, I'm relieved that this ministry is now taking action and initiation of content to connect with these men. Okay. That doesn't mean all the older guys are being left behind. This content's good for all ages. Doesn't matter what age you are. There's always more to learn about Jesus. There's always more to grow in your faith. And doesn't matter whether it's a 30-year-old reading it or a 64-year-old like me reading it. This is content about him, and it's always valuable. So hang in there with us. Watch us as we grow as a ministry, and continue to be part of supporting us like you have in the past, through your prayers, through your words of encouragement, and showing up at our events and however you participate.
That's good. Rick, you just kind of alluded to events and conferences there. I know that there's a lot of guys who are wondering, well, there's two issues. You got Impactus and you've got COVID. And so there's guys wondering, like, so are you dropping conferences with this name change? Like, what does that mean for our conferences? And how, what role does COVID play in all this? So since you're the conference guy, just maybe give guys an update on what this all means for our conferences.
Well, I'll do it in two parts. I'll do the COVID first, and then just what it looks like for the future. So in the short term, what we did is we scheduled conferences like we always have in the past, arranged facilities and dates, but we're subject to the rules of each province and the public health officers, and just also thinking through how to be stewardly with the ministry's resources. So our original schedule that we put together back in April, after we finished our past conference season, looks much different even today. The first thing we did was we reduced the number of conferences we're doing across Canada, and there were reasons for that, but we felt that that would be a good move, because we didn't know where this was all going with this coronavirus. And since that time, we've actually rescheduled events. We had planned to do 4 in the fall, this fall of 2020, and the rest in March and April of 2021. But now there's plenty of evidence that this is lingering. And so we've made the choice to move all of our events to 2021. There will be no conferences this fall, but it's not like we're not doing conferences. Our plan now is to host 7 conferences starting on February 27th, that Saturday, and moving through till mid-April in various locations across Canada. And at this point, speakers are booked, churches are booked, our facilities, and we're good to go. And it's only the rules and just common sense involved around the virus that will change things. And it may be. We just don't know. This thing changes on a continual basis.
Yeah.
Overall, we have no intentions of discontinuing conferences. We know that you men love coming to the conferences, as 1 or 2 or 3 have told me over the years. This is my yearly booster shot in addition to church. And we love hearing that. And until you men across Canada stop coming, we're going to continue hosting, because it's an opportunity, one of many different tools we have at the ministry in order to bring the gospel. And so there's no intentions to discontinue conferences. We have a short-term, I'll call hiccup, and once it's done, it'll be right back across the country in as many provinces as we can possibly host events in. So hang in there with us, but we will be back, and I still have my usual leaf jokes, as they were, recently eliminated again.
You have a chance you have actually more time to add more leaf jokes. Like this is buying you time to be able to add to your repertoire.
That's right.
That's
right.
You sit around all day and think about coming up with new leaf jokes.
It's my favorite day of the year, Maple Leaf Nation.
So I want to kind of wrap up the podcast today with just kind of a final question. We're talking a lot about Impactus. We want to encourage you guys just to keep checking it out and following along with us as we grow in this journey as men together. But, we are in a time of COVID. Things are weird for everybody. Some guys are back at church. Some guys aren't. Some men's groups are meeting. Some men's groups aren't. So there's just kind of this lack of normal, but the need to keep growing as godly men hasn't stopped because of COVID. We still need to keep training. We still need to keep investing in our development as men who want to follow Jesus. And so just some advice from you guys. What are some practical things guys can do during this time of COVID to keep building up as godly men?
Well, I'll get the first cake on a cat. I think as we talk in the ministry, right, we always reminding ourselves and reminding the man that that are in connection with us that the calling to Jesus is a proactive calling that he gives to us. He actually, Paul tells Timothy, train yourself for godliness. So this is not a passive role. This is not something that you sit down and expect your pastor to train you, your wife to train you, or no, this is like go and train yourself for godliness. So that requires, and what we want to do is just, give all the resources. So if you go on our website right now, as we just mentioned to you, you can search any topic there. And you'll find some great articles that you can read and learn and grow. But on the everyday, we have our daily devotional that you can also subscribe. And we part of our what we want is to make sure that you are getting sound teaching. and not just, fluffy stuff. We want to give you guys real meat. And, I'm a meat guy. So like this real meat so that you can actually digest and learn and grow. And as Rick said, this is all about Jesus. It's all about growing in him and becoming more like him. So we want to provide in that. Online small groups, another way that maybe you can get together with people personally. Some of the testimonies that we have received from guys in online small groups, I've been facilitating quite a few. Rick facilitated as well. It's just an amazing opportunity to see guys being vulnerable and growing together, people that you never met before, some of those guys. And then at the end of the small group, you feel like, oh man, I know this person, and what is amazing what God is doing. And so those are the kind of things that, we want to encourage you to go and search on our website and, put yourself out there and don't be shy.
Yeah, that's good. Rick, some thoughts?
Yeah, I think the number one thought I have right off the top is a personal learning lesson. Back in March when this stuff was all starting to happen and we were across the country locked down, very quickly I got this realization that I could no longer, I had no one, and I could no longer rely on someone else to nurture my faith. And by that I mean, like, my habit was we go to church Sunday morning. And so there was always someone on Sunday who was preaching the word to me. And so it was like, that was part of my routine and will be when our church gets going again. But that's relying on someone else. What I learned was, like, I had to do this all myself. And all of a sudden now it was all my responsibility. And it was like a kind of a weird thought process that just like, and if I don't change my discipline as it was, I'm going to regress in my faith walk. And so this is a whole new way of thinking of, like, okay, I need to add another layer to my personal discipline called initiation and initialize myself, like get a cattle prod and give yourself a jolt. Like, you need to get into God's word, because nobody was going to call me on the phone and say, hey, did you read your Bible this morning? Did you meditate at all? Did you, like, that's not happening. And that was a great lesson for me. And so that was what I would share with every guy listening to this. Look, it's really easy to retreat into your man cave and lose sight of everything, but you can't do that. It's really, you got to emerge out of it spiritually. So what you got to look at is, like, it's up to me to nurture my own faith. So get at it, figure out how to do that, which I can segue right into Impactus.org. There's going to be so much stuff. Like, I know what's going on behind the scenes. I've been watching this lately for months and months, and what's happening, and just the content alone. You're going to find just about everything you possibly can, maybe not on the first day or the first week, but it's going to be there over time. So use it as a resource. But it's not just our website. It's like wherever, just get into God's word and ask him to open his word into your mind. But initialize, just don't wait for someone else to do it for you, because there is nobody else. And that's the big lesson about this whole virus situation. And right now, we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we're going to get a second wave or a third wave or nothing. But if we do, and we're locked down again, keep that in mind. It's up to you to nurture your own faith.
Yeah, that's so good. And I want to just build off of what both of you guys have said and just say this to men. There's something inside of us as men that we do like to be independent. We do like to feel like, we can figure all this stuff out on our own. We can fix the problems ourselves, or we can be the man that we want to be on our own. But if you care about your kids, if you care about your marriage, if you care about what kind of an employee you are or an employer you are, if you care about whether or not your life is actually bearing any kind of fruit wherever you are day in and day out, Jesus said the only way it happens is to abide in him. which means, just to pick up with what Rick was just saying, you have to take the initiative to do something to make sure that you are abiding in Christ. You have to press in to your walk with him. And as you do that, our desire is to be a ministry that comes alongside of you and supports you as you press into those things, as you press into your walk with Jesus. That's why we're doing this website. That's why we're doing all these online small groups and workshops and events, and why we're going to keep doing conferences in the days ahead, because together we want to see men all over the world who are pressing into this life with Jesus. And man alive, what an amazing picture of what can happen, of the fruitfulness in our lives, the kind of impact that all of our lives can have in our families and beyond as we do this, as we press into Jesus. And so that's my encouragement to us guys is like, don't get caught up in your everyday routine and think I can just do this on my own. You can't. Jesus said you can't. He's a little smarter than you are. So listen to him. And so that's my admonishment and my encouragement to myself in all of this, and to all of us who are listening today. Impactus.org, make sure you bookmark that on your whatever browser you use to surf on your phone or tablet or computer, whatever you use usually to surf the internet. Check that out and share it with your friends. Let your friends know about this great resource that's available to help support them as men as well. Well, that's it for this edition, episode 1 of our Impactus podcast. We may or may not let Rick and Mauricio back on for future episodes. It really depends whether or not any of us are still alive. And so subscribe to the podcast and you'll find out in a couple of weeks if all 3 of us are still alive. With that in mind, thank you guys for joining us today. And thank you to all of you who are listening. We hope that you have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Impactus podcast. To learn more about living a life of purpose and godly impact, check out impactus.org.